We have got something for everyone in this video as we are going to be breaking down the best champions for each ELO bracket. We're going to be splitting the ranked tiers up into 3 different ELO brackets, one being low ELO, the second being mid ELO, and the third high ELO. Now, the reason we're doing this is because for many of the tiers right beside each other, we would recommend the exact same champion anyways, so we might as well just group tiers together into brackets to make things easier for everyone. So the low ELO bracket is going to consist of the ranks Iron, Bronze, and Silver. Mid ELO is going to be Gold, Platinum, and Emerald, while high ELO is going to consist of every single rank above Diamond. And did you know that with a 55% win rate, it takes 160 games on average to go up just one rank? Now increase your win rate by just 5%, and that time is literally cut in half to only 80 games. This is the power of SkillCapped. Each course offers a win rate increase that's literally a click away. Learn what took Challengers players 10 whole years to figure out in just 10 minutes. We supercharge your rank gains with real results. Just click the link in the description below now to get the rank that you've always dreamed of. So let's start the video off by covering our picks for low ELO, and by far the best top laner you can play right now is 100% Dr. Mundo. Mundo is so great for low ELO because he can do a little bit of everything without the need for high mechanical prowess. You get super tanky, deal a ludicrous amount of damage just from your auto attacks, and can either split push or team fight depending on the state of the game. Now, due to the fact Mundo just stacks tanks items, you're always going to be of use to your team regardless of if you're ahead or you're behind. Now, just being that front line for your team and soaking a ton of damage for your carries is a more underrated but extremely valuable way to make an impact. The 2 core items that you're going to be prioritizing in every single game with Mundo are Warmogs and Heartsteel. Warmog's Rush being in meta is a big reason why Mundo has so much added strength right now. Grasp is the keystone rune, followed by Demolish, Second Wind, and Overgrowth, while Freeboots and Approach Velocity are for secondaries. Our number 1 recommendation out of the jungle for low ELO is going to be Shyvana. Shyvana is one of the most effective low ELO junglers because she scales quite well and her power spikes are very well defined. Level 6 is such a huge spike for Shyvana, so hard farming your jungle and hitting 6 as soon as you can is an easy game plan to play towards. You really want to focus on stacking those early dragons as well. As Shyvana becomes more tanky, the more dragons she secures. Especially when you hit level 6, taking dragon is pretty risk-free because you can just save your R to escape if the enemy team tries to collapse on you. The core build for Shyvana is a hybrid setup consisting of Spear of Shojin, Liandris, and Riftmaker. This build heavily outperforms full AP as you have more margin for error and can actually be more engaged in fights due to the added durability instead of just sitting back and being an E-bot with full AP. Optimal rune page consists of Fleet Footwork with Triumph, Haste, and Cut Down, while Cashback and Jack of all trades are for secondaries. The best mid laner that you can play for low ELO in Season 14 is Brand. Brand mid has really burst onto the scene this season and is the perfect low ELO mid laner for a few different reasons that we're going to explain. Champs who scale well or hit massive power spikes off completing items are generally going to be more favorable in the lower ranks, and Brand is one of those champs. Once you complete your Rylai's and Liandris with Brand, the champ becomes absolutely godlike, and since low ELO games last longer on average, there's a really great chance of you hitting that spike in most games. Brand's kit also makes him an excellent low ELO mid laner because he has % health damage from his passive, which is going to become more valuable as the games drag out. You can also be very impactful with Brand without even landing a single skill shot, as using R in a grouped up team fight can be a game changer on its own. If you can play around objectives and look to force the enemy into 5v5s, the strength of Brand is incredibly high and you're going to come out on top more often than not. The best rune page for Brand is Comet with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch, while Presence of Mind and Cut Down are for secondaries. Fresh off some really impactful buffs and back to being the most optimal low ELO ADC is Misfortune. Misfortune is such a phenomenal low elo stomper because of how easy it is to be consistently valuable. You don't need any crazy mechanical skill to play MF, which is amazing when you're trying to escape low elo from ADC, because you can focus more of your energy towards macro play, which actually makes you a better player as a whole. Now, with many other ADCs, you have to be so incredibly focused on your micro and thinking about how you're going to play out situations mechanically, but with MF, most of the time, it's just about sitting behind your carries and being ready to press R. The new meta build for MF makes her an even better low elo pick because you've got more margin for error. With the shield coming out of Bloodthirster combined with running barrier for your secondary summoner spell, you're actually pretty difficult to take down, and even assassins are going to have a tough time. There's a lot of burst from the build as well, since it doesn't involve a single attack speed item, which is amazing for newer or inexperienced ADC players, since a lot of your damage is front-loaded from using Q and proccing Essence Reaver, which takes absolutely no skill at all. The rune setup for Misfortune consists of Press the Attack with Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Coup de Grace, while Free Boots and Biscuits are for secondaries. To climb out of low elo the fastest from the support role, it's in your best interest to spam a champion like Zyra, who is much less team reliant. The majority of support champions rely heavily on their ADC or their team to do well in order to win games. But with Zyra, you can be the carry yourself, so there's a lot more agency over how games play out. Say, for example, you pick someone like Soraka. Sure, you can heal your teammates like no tomorrow, but if they aren't actually competent, it's not going to translate into anything. Now, on the flip side, with Zyra, she can top the damage charts with ease, so even if one of her carries isn't having their best game, as long as you're playing well enough, whether your teammates are good or not, it really shouldn't matter. It's those team fights around key objectives where Zyra can really sway a game in her team's favor. If you can secure vision around the next objective that's spawning and force the enemy to face check into you, Zyra's E, followed up with R and a choke point, is extremely powerful. The core build that you're going to want to be running on Zyra consists of a Leandra's Rush into Rylai's Second, while Realm Spike is the item upgrade. Standard rune setup is Comet with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch, while Taste of Blood and Relentless Hunter slot in for secondaries. One of the best solo queue top lane champs for all ranks right now, but even better for the mid elo bracket, is Set. In high elo, it can be a bit more difficult to succeed with Set just because his kit is quite linear and good players can outplay him by spacing well and kiting him around. Now, this won't be as much of an issue in the mid elo bracket, and if you can get really good with Set, your ability to consistently impact games is going to be great. Set builds Bruiser, but is pretty tanky due to all the healthy stacks along with the massive shield he gets from W. You're able to be such a disruptor in team fights as the CC from R and E allow you to lock down a target really easily. Once you get a couple of items, the damage coming out of W can absolutely just wipe enemies that are grouped up and is one of the most satisfying parts of Set's kit. The optimal core build consists of a Stridebreaker Rush into Hullbreaker Second and Overlord's Bloodmail Third. Conqueror is the best Keystone rune, followed by Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand, while Second Wind and Overgrowth are for secondaries. A very strong jungler in meta who's thriving the most in the mid-elo bracket right now is Nocturne. Noc is going to follow a similar game plan as Shyvana for most games, as farming for that level 6 is key. However, you do have a little bit of more early game agency with Noc, as he fits into this mid-elo bracket perfectly. Using R with Nocturne definitely does take a little bit more skill than using R with Shyvana, as you've got to be more on point with how you use the ability, or you're just going to get punished a lot harder. The potential to snowball games if you know what you're doing is definitely higher with Nocturne though, as his R just gives him so many windows of opportunity that many junglers don't have the luxury of being able to go for. To find the most success with Nocturne, it's very key to be keeping track of who the most fed carry is on the enemy team, so you're not wasting R in fights. Even if most of the time using R on the enemy ADC is the correct play, if they're 0 and 5 and completely useless while the enemy mid laner's popping off, you're going to be much better off singling out the enemy mid in that case. So even though mechanically Nocturne is pretty simple, you do need to have some decent game sense in order to make him work, which is why we like him better for mid elo rather than low elo. The build for Nocturne consists of a Stridebreaker Rush into Hexplate Second and Black Cleaver Third. Grab Conqueror for the Keystone rune with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand, while Eyeball Collection, and Ultimate Hunter are for secondaries. A mid laner we really like for this mid elo bracket who can absolutely dominate games is Vex. Mechanically, Vex is a little bit more difficult, so it kind of eliminates her from being a low elo selection, while for high elo, you can run into issues in certain matchups where your opponent just really knows what they're doing. So mid elo is the perfect bracket for Vex to succeed in, because enemies won't be punishing you in lane as hard, and you should have enough mechanical skill required to play Vex at a good level. If you can get really good at Vex, then you're going to have the ability to completely take over certain matchups. Vex completely destroys mid lane champs with dashes, as her passive stacks up faster whenever the enemy uses a dash. This makes Vex insane against LeBlanc, Yone, Katarina, Akali, and Sylas, who are all very popular picks in the mid-elo bracket right now. What will really take your Vex to another level, though, is being able to navigate through her more difficult matchups, which are longer-ranged mages. If you can go even in matchups against Syndra, Lux, and Hui, but always win lane against those melee champs, your win rate on Vex over time is going to be really high. The standard build for Vex is a Luden's Rush into Shadow Flame second and Zhonya's or Rabadon's third. Run Electrocute for the Keystone Rune with Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, and Ultimate Hunter, followed by Mana Flow and Transcendence. The perfect ADC for the mid-elo bracket that everyone should have in their champion pool right now is Jinx. Jinx is one of those ADCs who's not the most difficult mechanically, but she's not super easy either, so she kind of fits into this mid-elo bracket really well. Your clicks do need to be more on point with Jinx as opposed to Misfortune, and once you reach gold, your mechanics should be at a level good enough to where you can pilot Jinx. The longer range of Jinx from her Q does make her a little bit more noob-friendly compared to many other ADCs though, as you can stay back at a safer range and still output some really good damage. What's so great about Jinx is that her damage per second can get quite high, but there's no shortage of burst strength there either. Jinx R, being that Execute, can deal a crazy amount of damage when enemies drop low on health, and this allows for Jinx to follow up on her teammates' engages really well. So whether you're paired with champs who want to dive in, or you're with a more passive ranged comp, Jinx fits in regardless and is just a very versatile pick. The core build for Jinx consists of a Kraken Slayer Rush into Phantom Dancer second and Infinity Edge third. Fleet and Press the Attack are both viable Keystone Runes for Jinx, so you can swap between the two based on the lane. If you're with a melee range support like Nautilus or Leona, then taking PTA so that you can deal more damage in all-ins is definitely going to be a great choice. If you're with an Enchanter support though, the value from Fleet is going to be higher in most cases. Once you get up past gold and are playing support, you should be able to rely on your team to follow up on your engages a little bit more than in low elo. So playing an engage support like Leona has more value, and she's the best in that class right now. Leona is one of the most powerful lockdown supports in the game, as her full CC combo can take an enemy out of a fight for multiple seconds. The damage that Leona can deal is actually pretty good for a melee support as well, so even if your ADC isn't the best, you're going to be able to finish off kills by yourself a lot of the time. You really want to be playing for that level 2 with Leona, as hitting 2 before the enemy and looking for an all-in is a great way to generate an early advantage. This is another reason why Leona works better for mid-elo than for low-elo though, because in the lower ranks, it's just way more difficult to execute on this level 2 play if your ADC lacks the basic game knowledge. Bloodsong with Warmogs and Locket is what your core build should be looking like for the majority of your games. It's Aftershock for the Keystone Rune with Font of Life, Bone Plating, and Overgrowth, while Sudden Impact and Relentless Hunter are the best secondaries. A top lane champ who's seeing a lot of priority in high elo right now and winning at a very high rate is Camille. Camille has received so many direct buffs throughout Season 14 and is by far the best carry top laner if you can pilot her well. Camille is much more difficult than the top laners we featured early on in the video, being Set and Mundo, so she fits in much better for the high elo bracket where players can easily get the most value out of her. There's so much that goes into playing a good Camille, as utilizing her passive and E optimally will take time to learn, while maximizing the power of Ignite with Teleport is quite unique to the champ, as few other top laners run that summoner combination. Once you get everything down though, Camille's kit is so rewarding if it's played well, as her long range engage and true damage gives her this assassin-like presence that few other bruisers have. Most fighter top laners either excel at team fighting or split pushing, but Camille can do both of them really well. Engage range gives Camille the ability to dive the backline really easily, while Q with Trinity Force procs allows her to take down towers really fast. The build that works best for Camille is a Trinity Force rush into Ravenous Hydra 2nd and Sterix or Shojin 3rd. Grasp is the Keystone rune with Shield Bash, Second Wind, and Overgrowth, while Freeboots and Biscuits are for secondaries. A jungler who's always going to excel more in the higher ranks and who's really strong in meta for Diamond and above right now is Nidalee. Plain and simple, Nidalee is a more feast or famine champion, and she's very early game reliant, so she's much better suited to dominate high elo. Games in high elo are much shorter than games in low elo, so a snowbally champ like Nidalee can absolutely take over games. There's also the mechanical side of things, as Nidalee is not the most noob-friendly champion at all. So these two factors combined of Nidalee being an early game reliant pick and also more mechanically demanding make her best suited for the high elo players. Just analytically, Nidalee is one of the most interesting champions in the entire game because she wins over 52% of the time in Diamond and above, but has a 47% win rate in Gold, Silver, and Bronze. In Iron, her win rate is literally 44%. So it just goes to show how important good macro and micro knowledge is when it comes down to winning with Nidalee. The build that most high elo players have gravitated towards on Nidalee as of recent is a Lichbane rush into Leandra's 2nd and Zhonya's 3rd. A lot more players have also started taking Electrocute due to its recent early game buffs, as you've got a little bit more snowball power with the rune now. If there is one mid lane champ that every high elo player should have in their champion pool for solo queue, it's Tristana. There's a lot of priority being put on ADCs in the mid lane in high elo and pro play as of recent, and we think Trist is the best out of the bunch. Now the reason being is that Trist has the ability to impact the early game a lot better than the likes of Corki or Ezreal. The pushing power from Trist E gives her free lane priority in a lot of matchups, which you can use to your advantage way more in high elo, where playing off your jungler is very key. If your jungler's playing an aggressive pick like Nidalee or Lee Sin who want to skirmish, complementing them with a Tristana pick has a ton of value, as your 2v2 power is going to be massive early on. If you get ahead in lane with Trist, it's also way easier to close out games quickly due to the tower taking power she has with E. In high elo, you're way more likely to force out FF votes if you get a big lead early on, and Trist is one of the best mids to capitalize on that. And even if you don't end up snowballing super hard early on with Trist, she still scales pretty well, so there's just a few weaknesses to the champ. The core build for Tristana mid lane consists of a Kraken Slayer rush into Flickerblade 2nd and Infinity Edge 3rd. Optimal rune setup is Fleet Footwork, Absorb Life, Alacrity, and Cut Down, followed by Bone Plating and Overgrowth for secondaries. The highest priority ADC in high elo for solo queue that every high elo ADC should be able to learn is Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa is dominating the high elo meta right now, and she's being picked in almost 40% of games while holding a very respectable 51% win rate. So why in the world would we have Kai'Sa in the high elo slot instead of for the mid or low elo slot? Well, the main reason is that your mechanical skill kind of needs to be on point in order to win with Kai'Sa way more than with MF or Jinx. Misfortune has her R that she can sit back from range and use. Jinx has her Q, which provides her with long range, but with Kai'Sa, her main damage source is coming from her autos, and her auto range is very short. This means you need to be choosing your openings a lot more wisely with Kai'Sa, and when you do enter a fight, being able to kite around and space well is very important so that you don't just get deleted instantly. Now, with that being said, the outplay potential of Kai'Sa is a lot higher than that of MF or Jinx, so when you've mastered the champ, there's a little more 1v9 potential with the pick. The best build in meta for Kai'Sa consists of a static Shiv rush into Rageblade 2nd and Nashor's Tooth 3rd. Press the attack is the Keystone rune with Absorb Life, Alacrity, and Cut Down, while Biscuits and Jack of all trades are for secondaries. One support champion who dominates the higher elos and is extremely powerful when piloted well is Pyke. The general decision making and mechanical skill that's required to play Pyke is much higher than the average support pick, which is why he fits pretty nicely in the high elo bracket. Pyke can win through smashing lane or by executing timely roams, so there are many ways in which you can approach each and every game. game. There's a big difference though between an average Pyke and a mastered Pyke player, as depending on who's playing him, the champ can either look like the most broken pick in the entire game or the most useless. Hitting Q consistently, timing those E flashes correctly, and hitting R consistently are not easy to do. But if you can get to the point where your hit rates on those become quite high, then honestly, the sky's the limit with Pyke. The stealth factor and being able to find catch plays on enemies who are out of position gives Pyke a lot of value in high elo, where getting a numbers advantage can snowball a lot harder. The core build for Pyke revolves around an Umbral Glaive Rush into Edge of Night second, while Celestial Opposition is the item upgrade. Pick up Hail of Blades for the Keystone Rune with Cheap Shot, Zombie Ward, and Relentless Hunter, while Biscuits and Jack of all Trades are for secondaries. Okay guys, one last thing. Our rank up guarantee is absolutely insane. It's kind of like signing up for the gym and then just getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with the top players, the rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb as easy as possible. If you're ready to level up, just visit skillcapped.com and literally see the difference. So that's going to wrap up everything for our latest update on the best champions for every single rank. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you back soon.